Welcome back to the podcast. We are on the Figure It Out podcast where I try to figure out what to do with my life by interviewing people who I think are interesting and who have cool jobs. So today we welcome Rick, who, along with his wife Paige, who could not join us today, owns Houndstooth Modern Tavern, a local catering company here in Minneapolis. I've had the pleasure of having Rick's food and his wife's drinks at a collaboration with California Street Farm for the past 2 years, which has been delicious, always a highlight of my summer. They create unforgettable experiences that are extremely unique with their work, and I'm super excited to hear more about how you got into it and where you started. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So I would explain Houndstooth as a catering company, but I'm not really sure that that's the right way to categorize it. When people ask you what Houndstooth is, what's your typical answer?
So it kind of varies. It's taken us a few years to really come up with what that answer is. But sort of our response is we are like a high touch, small catering company. So we create unique experiences that are custom to every single person. We don't really work with set menus. We sit down with folks and we say, tell us what this event is. Is it a birthday? Tell us some birthday memories. Is this an anniversary? Tell us about your honeymoon, things like that. We often ask people for food and travel memories, and then we will build an event around that. We don't generally do big events. I think the biggest events that we do are ticketed dinners, pop-ups, things like that. And those usually cap around 50 people.
Okay.
So, if someone reaches out and they're like, can you cater my wedding for 200 people? We're like, no, that's just not what our model is.
Sure.
But that isn't to say that we don't do weddings. We are doing a wedding actually in a couple of weeks for 20 people.
Okay.
So that's more doable. And again, we met with those people on Sunday and we talked about food and food memories and stuff like where they've lived. And so we built a kind of a cool menu. They're getting married kind of early in the day, so it's going to be like a brunch sort of vibe. So yeah, that's the long form.
that's it's not, the easiest thing to explain, but I've obviously been following you guys since I had that first dinner and was like, this is very interesting. And then I was like, I thought that the menu was unique because you were working with Alyssa and working with the farm. And I was like, well, this makes sense. It's very farm to table. Like, I understand that you would have to customize this menu. And as I started to follow you more, I was like, oh, I think they do this every time. I think that's how it is.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Where did this journey start? Have you been in kitchens your whole life? Did this, kind of talk me through how you got to where you are now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in kitchens since I was 15 and a half years old. I am 38 now, so that's a fair chunk of my life. I started in fast food like most teenagers do. And I kind of worked in a lot of different fields in terms of food. I worked in very, very elite high-end fine dining. And I've worked in just simple fast casual joints and, pubs and anything kind of in between. I always kind of had a vision of opening a restaurant.
Okay.
And I think Houndstooth was our first step towards that.
Okay.
So I helped to open a wonderful French restaurant in South Minneapolis called St. Genevieve.
Oh.
Owned by Stephen Brown of Tilia.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of hit a wall. I honestly I started getting this feeling of every day I was going into work and I was just dreading it. I did not want to be there. And I said, I'm going to have to just pause, I think, and take a break. And I got a gig bartending at Acadia on the West Bank because I like craft beer. And I was like, I like that place. It could be fun.
Yeah.
And the break lasted for, I think, about 3 months or so. So I was bartending. I was also, I was a food runner at Monello, which no longer exists. They were this really cool Northern Italian fine dining joint, part of Jester Concepts. And so that was my way of still being involved, but I was itching and I was like, maybe I'll do a pop-up. So we did this pop-up at Cook St. Paul. Eddie was a huge help to us there. He said, use the space. You guys seem cool. And it was crazy. It sold out. We sold 50 tickets. I think it was 2 seatings. We had a ragtag group of other cooks who I've known forever. They were like, yeah, let's do this thing, do a pop-up. And so then we did another one. It wasn't so successful. And then we started kind of partnering with people and doing these collaborative dinners. And the goal was like, we'll do enough of these pop-ups. We'll get our name out there. We'll get funding. We'll get a restaurant. We'll kind of do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sorry, I feel like I'm getting real name droppy here, but then a friend of ours who's the owner of J. Carver Distillery in Waconia,
Okay.
Bill Miller, he was kind of coaching us along. He knows business really well. And he was like, he just threw out this idea. He's like, would you guys ever want to do like one of your pop-ups, but like in my house? And I said, I've never done that before. That's never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you do it? I'll invite 10 people over. Paige can take care of the beverages.
Mm-hmm.
You can take care of the food. Let's just do like, I don't know, like you do a pop-up, like a 5-course dinner with pairings. And I said, sure. We did it and it was a hit. It turned out really, really well. Like it surprised us. We were like, I can't believe how well this worked, And then he said, would you want to do another one in a few weeks? And I said, sure. And at both of those events, other people were like, well, what's your concept called? Like, do you do this all the time? And we were like, no, we've just done this for Bill a couple times. They're like, well, give us a card. Okay. So then that snowballed into what we jokingly called like the Waconia connection. And we had this like rotating group of people out in Waconia of all places who were like hiring us for these high-end dinners in their houses. And it really sort of took off.
Mm-hmm.
And we started kind of refining the concept and really like dialing in what it meant. And for us, it was never really like, it never felt natural to do the same menu every time.
Yeah.
Because these people would always have these different ideas. Like they'd be like, oh, wow, like we all just went to Italy for the weekend. Like, because that's what rich people do sometimes. They're like, we're so inspired by Italian wine and food. Can you do like more Italian leaning food? It's like, sure, I've worked in Italian restaurants. I can figure it out. And then, yeah, so then the ball started rolling. And then we started kind of marketing this thing as like, we'll come into your house and we'll create a dinner for you. I think someone may have included us on a list at some point,
Okay.
a local writer. And so then that got more business and we just started kind of going for it. And the idea to open a brick and mortar sort of faded as time went on because we've been having so much fun doing these in-home dinners, creating this really solid base of clients.
Yeah.
And then every time we'd kind of like look at a building and like dream it up, and we have an architect and like designer and stuff. We would hit these funny roadblocks, like whether it would be money or like it's not the right timing, or like we had a building with the seller was like really complicated to work with, and we were just kind of like, this doesn't feel fun anymore. And so we haven't fully sundowned that idea. We've sort of said like, if the perfect opportunity comes up, we still may do it.
Okay.
But right now we are just really enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Let's rewind back to you helping open another restaurant. You said you were kind of in a phase of like, I didn't want to go to work. Like every day I was dreading it. And then you took a break, but your break was still like food involved. Was there any point in there where you were like, you know what, maybe food's not it? Like maybe I need to switch gears completely. What did that look like?
Kind of. So the other side to that is that I weirdly have been involved in a lot of restaurant openings.
Yeah.
I don't really know why, but it's this like funny niche that I've helped open like big corporate places, and I've also been on opening teams of smaller independent restaurants. And St. Genevieve just kind of like broke me. Like it was great. I mean, like I still love the place. I go there, with relative consistency, and I hold no ill will to the folks. It's just personally, I was like, I can't keep doing this. And yeah, I mean, a couple different ideas sort of floated in my head. I knew that I still wanted to be involved in food, but I was sort of thinking like, what's a different avenue? I thought about like doing consulting work. I know some chefs who've kind of gotten into that. But I think if I were to pick like one field, especially in that time, I think it would have been like more of an education based thing.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like kind of cool to either teach like cooking classes or like, even if it was like something hyper specific, like here's how to do ferments, But I guess that's still sort of food related. So, but yeah, I think education would have been
Yeah.
an area that and I still think about it actually. Like when the world was shut down in 2020, like
Mhm.
Paige and I had these like conversations about like, should we do like food education videos? Everyone's at home, everyone's cooking. And
Mhm.
we did one, I think, where I like showed people how to break down a chicken.
Hmm.
It got like all these likes. People were like, this is great. Now I know how to butcher a chicken. I was
Yeah.
like, cool. Maybe that's a world that I could explore one day.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think during the pandemic, I remember Stephanie Izzard of The Girl and the Goat
Yeah.
did a bunch of like you would order the food and it would get shipped to you, and then it was like this kind of online cooking class. So
Yeah.
my parents did a couple of those where they were like, "Oh, this is like a great way to pass the time," and we also get to like kind of hang out with this chef who we like greatly admire.
Yeah.
It felt very intimate and very cool. So fascinating how like I mean the pandemic brought out some of that creativity in people and like, oh, what else could we be doing?
Yeah.
So that's super interesting. Um, let's talk about you running a business as a married couple. So, like, I guess so many questions about it. Like, when did you get married? Was this always the plan? Did you pick Paige because you were like, you're beverages? We look at this. We go together. Or how did that come to be?
Well, so we got married. We got married when I was still just a cook, and Paige was doing bedside nursing, actually.
Okay.
But Paige's history is she has a very deep history in craft beer.
Oh.
So she took a trip years ago to somewhere in Wisconsin. Maybe it was New Glarus.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Home of Spotted Cow.
Yeah. And she like just fell in love with like the craft beer movement and started kind of writing about it. And then she eventually started this blog that was called Alcohol by Volume. And what's interesting about her beer writing is some writers tend to just focus very insular on the local scene because Minnesota has a really good beer scene and Wisconsin. But she really would go out and about. Like
Okay.
she would be like, no, I want to cover what's happening in like North Carolina. Like I want to see what's going on in California right now. So that got her attention of some national publications as well. So Good
Wow.
Beer Hunting is one of the biggest ones. She's written for them before. And what's interesting about her beer writing is she's less about the beverage, more about the people. So that's kind of her background.
Mhm.
And when it came to doing a pop-up, I think that was when we both were like having like kind of a serious conversation. Like, do we want this to turn into a restaurant?
Mhm.
If it does, what does that look like? When we started out, our vision was very much beer and food because we were like, we want to be able to pair, to elevate beer to the level of fine dining.
Mhm.
And as we kind of moved along, it evolved into whatever the best pairing is. Sometimes it's beer, wine, cider. But in terms of us working together, like, yeah, we did that first pop-up and like I came up with a menu. She came up with pairings. We trialed a few dishes. We tasted some things and we're like, this is really fun. And also like, I think we kind of know what we're doing, which was like, we all second guess ourselves. That's just part of life. But I think for something like that, we were like, wow, this actually like really works. And since Paige has gone on like a much deeper education journey in terms of wine and cider and spirits, because we have arrived at this, like, we want to find the best pairing possible. And yeah, I mean, because of that, we work really well together.
Yeah.
And we don't, if there's one thing like at our heart of hearts, it's hospitality. We almost never have to like remind ourselves of that. We
Yeah.
never have to be like, hey, like make sure that this is about the people, right? Like we are very hospitality focused. I think in areas where we maybe like struggle a little bit as being a married couple running a business is more with like logistics and like weird minutia. Like, we have to do a social media post today and we're both just like creatively drained. I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to post about? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then like Paige will post, she'll be like, can you do like the hashtags? I'm like, are people still doing hashtags? I don't know. Like, so things like that. But in terms of executing concept, I think we both do like, we definitely bounce off each other. And she knows my style of food. She knows how I approach food and I
Yeah.
know how she approaches beverage. So that can be really fun too. Some folks that have hired us out in Waconia, they will go to California and they will buy a bunch of wine and say, can you make us a wine dinner with this? And I will start making food that I know for a fact is better with wine.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paige will start researching those wines, and we'll kind of come together and like put a menu together and think like, okay, this like, this really works. Like we can click pretty nicely on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome that you guys have like found that and that you balance each other so nicely. And I think knowing someone that well and being able to go into something that is as diverse as food and drink is really
Mhm.
special. Like to just kind of, like you said, know how she approaches beverages and she knows how you approach food. And therefore you guys can really come together and like create something super special.
Yeah. Yeah.
So rewinding to back when you were 15 and a half, you joined your first fast food restaurant. Like, was there an instantaneous moment where you were like, this is it? This is what I want to do? Or did it kind of just gradually, you're like, oh, well, I worked at this fast food place and so I can cook at this place and then just kind of grow from there? What did that look like?
A little bit. I think when I first started, McDonald's is a great place to start work. You learn so many systems. And I really, like most young cooks, I really liked the hustle. I liked the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed when we were just so busy. One of the stations that I worked was called Levels, which basically means you're responsible for making sure that the line cooks don't run out of like hamburger patties,
Mm.
chicken nuggets, all that stuff. And
Sure.
so you're just like managing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like probably when I was there for about 6 months, just like getting in the zone. And I was like the levels guy. Like they could put me on Friday and I could just like, it'd be like, we have no worries that we're going to run out of anything.
Yeah.
Because McDonald's is crazy. It's like, you order your food and you have it in under a minute.
Yeah.
So it's a whole machine. I was definitely in that zone. I was like, wow, like this is cool. I might actually consider doing this, but not being at McDonald's my whole life, but
Right.
like doing this my whole life.
Mhm.
And then I started working at this like more like sit down kind of casual pizza chain that I really liked. And I was there for I think about 2 years, and then just as like a line cook. And I really liked it. I liked the people. I liked the energy. The menu was enormous, like not Cheesecake Factory, but close.
Yeah.
Um, and I sort of stepped away because I wasn't really sure. It's like for the podcast, I wasn't sure what I was doing with my life. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, like I'm 18 years old. I work at this pizza joint. I'm making really good money doing this, but like, do I want to keep doing this?
Mhm.
And so to backtrack, my dad is a printer. He
Okay.
owns a printing company, a small printing company. Um, and he was kind of going through us kids. My older sister had no interest in being involved in the company. My older brother, no interest in being involved in the company. And I'd sort of expressed some interest in it
Mhm.
because as kids, we grew up at the print shop.
Yeah,
We were just
totally.
always there. And so I took like a year off, and my dad kind of gave me this thing. And he was like, listen, just come work for me for a year. We'll show you the ropes.
Mhm.
We'll teach you how to run a printing press. And he's like, I'll teach you the ins and outs of the business.
Mhm.
And if this is something that you're interested in, maybe we get you on a track to take over the family business. And it was really good work. I really liked doing it. I like working with my hands,
Yeah.
tactile stuff.
Yeah.
I got to learn how to set up like letter presses,
Okay.
which
So we're talking about like old school.
old school,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
like yeah. So which was really cool, and like that's an interesting skill
Mhm.
to have. I wonder sometimes like because letterpress printing tends to get really popular every few years. I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder if that would have been an interesting like different avenue for me. But what was hard, honestly, was the Monday to Friday 9 to 5. It felt like every morning I woke up at 7 a.m. I went to work. I got home around 6 p.m. And then it's like, you're too tired to do anything.
Mhm.
I felt like my hobbies had just completely disappeared. I barely saw my friends who I worked with in the restaurant
Mhm.
anymore because they all worked nights. And after doing it for about 6 months, I went back to the restaurant part time.
Okay.
And I worked, I think it was like Wednesday, Friday, Saturday nights. And so I was working at the print shop during the day, restaurant at night. And I was kind of having this like internal battle,
Mhm.
right? Of like, where am I getting fed right now?
Yeah.
And I would come home from a shift at the restaurant and like, I was like just jacked.
Yeah.
Like I was so pumped. I'd like come. I had this routine where I would actually come after a restaurant shift, like a 12-hour restaurant shift. I would go for like a 5K run because I just had this energy. I was like, oh, it's so exciting. Whereas I'd come home from the print shop and I'd be like, I just want to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of balancing those two things, I was like, oh, like, I don't know. And I know it was probably pretty disappointing for my dad, but after the 1 year mark, we had sort of like a come to Jesus. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't
Yeah.
want to take over the family company.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think he was kind of like, okay, well, if your heart is in restaurants, then it's in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my manager at the pizza place, I said, listen, I'm all in. And he said, great, I need an assistant kitchen manager. And, plug and play.
Yeah.
Him and I turned that franchise into like one of the most profitable ones in the country.
Wow.
It was in pretty rough shape when he had taken over.
Yeah.
And we turned it around like within a year, I got this rush from that. Like I was like, this is so cool. Like there's goals here. Every day is a little bit different, but like there's these like long-term sort of ways that we can measure our success. And that's not just like we had a really good service. Like it's like we actually hit sales goals, and like
Right.
our food cost was really good and our labor cost was really good. And like we have people from other franchise locations coming out to like learn from us. And that's really cool. That's like a special feeling. So it was probably around that time where I was like, I'm committing to this for the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you feel like those sales goals and like being able to think about stuff like that came from your dad of like growing up in a family business, or was that really taught to you by the owner or general manager of that restaurant?
I think a combination of the two. My dad, he's a funny business owner but I've learned a lot from him. He's a funny business owner because he's always really good about telling people about like the intangibles. He calls it turning the key and opening the door in the morning. Cause he would say like, sometimes people complain that my prices are too high for the product that I'm providing. It's like, okay, well then go to the FedEx store and get it printed quickly and cheaply. But he would say like, people don't realize like I have to pay property taxes. I have to pay for the water. I have to pay to turn the lights on, like electricity, like all these tiny little things that I then have to kind of factor into the price of the product that I'm selling. So I learned a lot from him about that.
Yeah.
But then being at that pizza joint, definitely like getting in the back end and like getting into spreadsheets and making schedules that made sense. That was a huge skill that like we had to lock in, because when my friend had taken over as the manager and then brought me on as the assistant manager, like scheduling was wild. The person before was just like, put everybody on the floor on Friday night. Yeah. And it was like, we can't afford to have everybody on the floor on Friday night. Like,
Right.
And also it's truly too many cooks in the kitchen. We're
Yeah.
like falling over each other.
Yeah.
So we kind of came up with this schematic of like streamlining our staffing and then also building shifts so that people could cascade sort of in and out. And I mean, it was remarkable. Within the first month, we were like, our labor had completely turned around. And
Yeah.
it was just really, like something really exciting to see, to be like, wow, like we fixed this problem. And at the same time, we were really communicative with our staff about that. Like we sat everybody down and we were like, do you want more hours? Do you want less hours? Do you want the same hours? What kind of shifts do you want? Like, let's build a schedule that works for everyone.
Right.
And I think saying this out loud, like working in that environment, really encouraged me to be a very collaborative person.
Yeah.
And that's something that with what we do right now, I think that's a skill that I really value. Like collaboration with people, I think is really important.
Yeah. Being able to communicate and like openly ask like, hey, what do you want? Because I think, especially as a manager, you often assume that like, oh, all these people want to work as much as possible, or you feel bad because you're like, oh, I don't want to cut anyone's hours. And then you come to find out that like, oh, Jill, Jack, and John actually don't want to work that much. And they're actually mad at me for putting on the schedule that much. And like, oh, okay, cool. Well, these three people also don't have enough hours. So like, great, let's make this all work together. Like, it's amazing how much just a little bit of honest communication can like go such a long way to solving literally everybody's problems. It's like, we can all win here.
Yeah, truly.
I think that's like a big hospitality misnomer, is that people are like, oh, the servers are in a bad spot or the cooks are, tyrannical or whatever. And it's like, that's not, I mean, certainly happens, but
Yeah.
like, it's not always true. Like people are often in the spot that they want to be. And as long as you're open and communicative about it, like it's not.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's interesting. I'd be curious to know how much your experience at McDonald's helped you create some of those systems, just knowing that like McDonald's is very systematic. When I was growing up, my mom owned a small restaurant and catering company, and I just
Cool.
assumed I would work for her. Like I was like, I'll turn 16 and work for you. And she was like, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? And I have an older sister, so I was like, well, is it that, that was a bad experience? Like, and she was like, you will get trained at McDonald's in 3 days. It will take me 6 months to train you because I don't have the time. I don't have the systems.
Yeah.
We have all these little one-off things that come up every 6 months. So I can't teach you about it until it happens. She was like, McDonald's has a massive training budget for you and they will have you completely trained in 3 days. And I was like,
Literally.
I can't believe you're not going to, I was so hurt. I was like, I can't believe you're not going to let me work for you. And she was like, you can work for me eventually, but you need to get corporate experience first because they have the budget, time, and expertise to train you in a way that a small business just doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to see people who are small business owners now. I think some of the most successful ones have worked in that corporate experience because they know how to systemize and optimize and like food costs. Like if you don't know what you're doing with food costs, you're done.
Yeah.
Like
and everything's getting more expensive. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to adjust for that and decide like, oh, this person gave me a budget and so they're going to get this cut of meat instead of this cut of meat because that's the budget they gave me.
Budget, yeah.
And like,
yeah. And then the McDonald's thing, I mean, I remember like I was terrified. I was 15 and a half years old. It was my first real job, like not just, cleaning up at the print shop on the weekends. And what was hilarious about it is that my brother and sister also worked at that same McDonald's. And so when my dad came in with like another kid, the manager was just like, sure, bring them on, you know? But I remember getting my first schedule and seeing my first 3 shifts, and they all had like a T next to them as training shifts, and they were all 3 hours long. And I was like, how are they going to train me to do this job in 9 hours spread over 3 days? And the first shift that didn't have the little T next to it, I mean, I was walking to McDonald's from high school for my 3 p.m. shift. And I was like panicking. I was like freaking out. I was like, what is going to happen? Like, are they just going to throw me on the line? And like, and it was just the wildest experience. I got there, like put on my uniform. I went on the line and it was a long shift. It was a 3 to 11 shift. It's like, I haven't worked that long before. What's going to happen? And it was like, I just knew what to do.
yeah.
And it's so funny. Like they can train a person so quickly and just put them on the line. And like for all the fear and anxiety that I had, I like went home that night just being like, that was actually easy. Like that was weirdly easy. Why was it so easy?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what a good training budget can do for a business. That's wild.
Yeah.
But you talked a little bit about the pizza joint and coming home and being able to run a 5, or like that was your thing. I mean, I do think that food in particular, I think other jobs have it too. Food in particular has this sort of flow state that like you get into this flow state, like you were saying with the levels, where everything is just like kind of like it's all happening. I know this has to go here and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that is a difficult thing to train into somebody. If they don't have that kind of like innate, like when they reach, I think it's like maybe a certain level of pressure where you're like, when I've reached this level of pressure, then I can like kind of get into it. Cause I had certainly worked catering jobs where there was less pressure and I was making mistakes left, right, and center.
Right.
But like for whatever reason, the like 200-person weddings where I knew the price tag of the wedding, where I was like,
yeah.
Okay, we cannot get this wrong. Like it all like I wonder like how close it is to being on a stage where like I think that like that kind of adrenaline is just so into you. You just don't get that with like really anything else.
I think about that with I worked at this brew pub, tiny little brew pub in Montreal, where I lived for many years. And it was wild. I mean, I had experienced fast kitchens and like being in the weeds, but that was like flow state is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of the busiest brew pubs. Our line worked with 2 people. That was it. It was it was a tiny kitchen. I'd
Yeah.
never worked in a kitchen that small before. And I remember my line mate and we were the two Anglophones, so we always worked together. Um, he he was hardened, both of us hardened cooks at that point, like
Mhm.
many years of experience. And I just didn't know what to do because the printer tickets our rail was completely full and the tickets were spilling onto the floor. And I was like, I literally just like stopped in the midst of service. And I was like, what do we do? And he was like, we just keep cooking. And I was like, okay. And we sort of, between the two of us, reached that like flow state
Mhm.
where we were just cooking.
Mhm.
And then the next thing we knew, it was 11:30.
The ticket
We
to the
had-
printer finally stopped.
The printer finally stopped. We'd cleared the board and
Mhm.
we were like, okay. And now we have to do that all over again tomorrow.
Mhm.
But yeah, that, flow state's a good way to describe it because you do just you get into this rhythm and you're like, we just have to keep moving.
Mhm.
And there's, you're not going to stop. And
Right.
you can't just be like, okay, this is too much.
Mhm.
Like there's hungry people out there.
Mhm.
You want to make sure they get fed. So.
Yeah. And that's kind of where you get to start to optimize. At least that's what I do when it's like really busy and you're like, oh, this knife needs to be 2 inches closer to me. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's move this.
Mhm.
Okay, this needs to be here. And this actually makes more sense here and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's where all those little optimizations come in where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
we can do this. Which, I would be curious, home kitchens, like if you're cooking in a home kitchen,
Mhm.
I'm sure you've walked into some pretty poorly set up home kitchens where you're like,
yeah.
why is your dishwasher in the living room? What is happening here? How do you accommodate or plan for that?
Paige and I try to be really adaptable. I think that's important in any field. I think when you're stepping into someone's home, it's doubly important. Waconia is great. A lot of folks out there have beautiful kitchens. Kitchens that are better than some restaurant kitchens. I mean, I've cooked with equipment out in Waconia that I'm like, I don't even see this in fine dining restaurants. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
There's always plenty of space. I think one thing that we've learned over the years is we ask people a lot of questions. And I think people are very open to that because what we do is still kind of a niche thing. So we'll usually, I will always ask like, what's your range setup look like? Is it electric? Is it gas? How many burners? What about your oven? Is it a 2-level oven? Is it separate from the range? Is it built into the wall somewhere? Sinks, that's always a big question when you're making food in someone's house. Like, where is the sink located? Because sometimes we have to wash glassware from course 1 for course 4. And how hot does your water get?
Yeah.
That's a consistent thing. I'm fine with really hot water. Paige is not. And I have to remember that goes back to like working together as a married couple. I have to remember like, don't put the water on scorching hot because then Paige is going to go and turn it on and she's going to burn herself. I burned myself. And proximity to the dining room. That's a huge factor. What does your dining room look like? We have these clients who are awesome. And their chairs are these like massive wingback chairs. Once they're all around the table, it is impossible to drop a plate over those chairs. So generally, we just ask a ton of questions and we just try to get as good of a vibe as we can. Some people will send us pictures, which can be helpful, but they don't usually have good scale. We just did, for a repeat client, we did a dinner out at an Airbnb cabin near Rice Lake, Wisconsin. And they sent us pictures of everything, which was super helpful because I was like, we're barely going to have to bring glassware.
Yeah.
That's really good for us. But at the same time, like there was like barely hot water. It was like really hard to wash things.
Yeah.
And we had one experience, I think, that was really difficult. They were totally fine, but I think they had no counter space for us. And that was when we started telling people like, can you please clear some counter space? And can you clear some fridge space? In the case of this person, I mean, they were great, but it was like we got there and like all their pots and pans were on the stove. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to have to move these. And I was like, I don't know where to put them. And I opened the oven and it's filled with pots and pans. And I was like, okay. And then like the actual countertop was just appliances everywhere. They
Hmm.
had like 3 toasters for some reason. I have no idea why. And like that's where they stored all their cookbooks. And
Okay.
this was like a small house,
Yeah.
which like we work in small houses all the time, but we were just like, we got to that kitchen and I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do this. We
Yeah.
were like stacking plates on top of each other and like for one course, we plated everything off to the side because we had to stack the plates up.
Yeah.
And it was fine. They had a wonderful experience, but
Yeah.
it was just like, that was a situation where we were like, okay, this is probably one of the hardest kitchens that we're working in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like Paige didn't have a beverage station. She had nowhere to like make cocktails and pour wine. She was like doing it in like this little like pantry kind of thing, like on
Mhm.
an overturned box. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, I distinctly remember that one of my like favorite, least favorite. It's funny how that works. Like in the moment, you're like, "This is terrible," and then when it's over, you're like, "Oh, that was kind of fun."
Yeah, you look back on
Yeah,
it.
we did a wedding at a quarry,
Wow.
and it was beautiful. It was really cool. They had this gorgeous tent set up that had completely clear walls. It was super cool. But I was not allowed to be a server until I didn't have braces anymore, which is like the craziest rule of all time. But my mom was like, my servers don't have braces. And I was like, okay. So I was on dish duty. That was my job to do the dishes. And I don't know if you rent or you do your own, but we generally had to rinse them off. But they would
Yeah.
get put through, an industrial dishwasher when they got back to the rental place, whatever. So my mom was like, you just have to rinse them off. And I was like, with what water? Because we were serving out of a tent.
Right.
And I was like, and she was like, there's a garden hose over there. So I am in the back of this tent doing dishes with a garden hose.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh my God, I will never forget this. Like
Yeah.
I must have been 13 or 14 at the time. It was just like, I hate this. I hate it. But you get done. And the culture there was we would always go out to like eat afterwards at like Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever.
Nice.
And it was just like, okay. And we sat at Buffalo Wild Wings and we were just all kind of like, we did it. We did it. And then at that point, my mom goes, okay, so this is the schedule for next weekend. And we're like, oh my God, no, stop.
That's like how at California Street, like the first year when we were like, what are we doing? Like we have to clean these dishes somehow. And Alyssa's like, well, the water's only cold. And I was like, okay. And so my friend Jackie, she's like on the ground, like basically in the mud, like rinsing dishes in cold water.
Yeah.
And when we debriefed after that, we were like, okay, so first things first, we got to figure that out because we can't have cooks like crouched in the dirt washing dishes. That's just not okay. And the system's a little bit better now, but we only have the capability to do a cold rinse. And our rule is kind of like get all the debris off of them because then we're going to take them. We usually go to the Briar. Those are very dear friends of mine.
Yeah.
And they open up their kitchen to us all the time. They're like, yeah, just come here and wash dishes. I'm like, great. Like, do you need to do some prep? You can do prep here. So, so that it's always like the next day I like go to the Briar with like all these dishes, just like wash them and like run them through the high temp sanitizer and all that. It's like in those moments, you're just like, this is just what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the flow differences or maybe even personal preferences between kind of that small brew pub versus fine dining, and what are the big differences? What do you like better? What are your preferences?
Yeah, it's it's hard to say. Like the fine dining place that I worked at was incredible. And I say place because I've worked at a bunch of fine dining places, but there's really one that stands out. They're called Ashkatse. They no longer exist. COVID wiped them out. Although actually I think they did. They survived a little bit longer, but yeah, it's hard. Montreal, that's in Montreal, by the way. And Montreal got hit really, really hard with the pandemic. It was kind of painful. I went back for a friend's wedding. I think it was in 22, and you could just see like so many places had closed. Because that's the type of city where everybody eats out. It's just a normal thing. It's just part of the rhythm of living there. When I lived there, I probably made food at home. I probably would make either breakfast or dinner. Otherwise, it was like, no, you just go down the street to wherever.
Yeah.
So Ashkatse was really interesting. The chef there, Danny, was a huge influence on my food style. he would do these dishes where there would be like over 20 components on the dish, all of these tiny little things that all made sense. But when you're like making your prep list, you're like, this is deranged. Why on earth do we have a Jerusalem artichoke puree and a chip and a dust and then like a dehydrated one and then like a deep fried one? Like, why are all of those on the dish, Danny? What is the point? And his like kind of catchphrase would be like, well, I want something that's nice in the mouth. He's a textures guy, very much a textures guy. He loved people like Wiley Dufresne, WD-50 and stuff like that. And so that really opened my eyes to this way that you can kind of do food and really play around a lot. Like we know the rules now, we can break them, sort of thing. And the flow of that restaurant was really interesting. So my job there, I was the bread maker there as well. I wore many hats. I baked bread, I was pastry assistant, I was garde manger, I was entremetier, like vegetable station, and I would occasionally help our sous chef with butchery. So I just kind of like put myself anywhere that I could. And so my day started at 10 a.m. and usually ended around midnight. So pretty long day.
Yeah.
But the first part of your day from 10 to about 4 o'clock, you're just doing prep work. And I really like that because it's very like, you're playing music, you're making coffees for everyone. Danny's showing up with a carload of stuff from the farmer's market and handing you random things and being like, can you turn this beet into a jelly? And I'm like, sure, I'll figure it out. And so it's interesting because it's very calming work. Like you have your prep list, you're working on your prep list, you're getting all your items done, you're helping your coworkers out. And then it's like you sit down for staff meal. You come upstairs. We had a basement private dining area where we all did staff meal. And then you come upstairs and then like it's go time. You set up your station and then you're in it from about 5 to usually 10 or 11 p.m. And when you're working at a place like that, the average customer was getting a 6-course dinner.
Okay.
You could do 3, you could do 6, you could do 9, or you could do the just mess me up menu. And that's where we'll just keep sending you food until you say stop. And so you get tickets that come in and they're long. Like it's like a huge ticket.
Yeah.
Because it's got, 9 courses on it or 6 courses on it. You arrange them all. And so it's like everyone's course 1 kind of goes out, and then everyone's course 2 goes out, and then a bunch of other course 1s go out, and then course 3s start moving.
Yep.
So there's this rhythm in the way that like you work it. And so your tickets sort of build up on your rail, and then they slowly kind of come down, and then they build up and they come down. It's like it's very ebb and flow, and it's like a really, back to the flow state thing. Like when we were all just grooving in that kitchen, it felt so good. And we ran a big team. We ran with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us usually, including Danny.
Wow.
There's another thing about Danny is he was always in the kitchen with us. He was never he didn't like going out and schmoozing. He was like, I want to be here cleaning and cooking and working with you guys.
He's not shaking hands and kissing babies.
Exactly. And so part of that flow, what was always really interesting is like this, everyone's getting everything ready. And the kitchen was designed around this one huge marble plating table. And it was like all the cooks would just turn around to the table. And Danny would have all the plates set out and organized. This is this, this is this, this is this. I know where everything's going. And as a team, we would all plate everything.
Oh, wow.
He would show us the vision of what he wanted the plate to look like, and we would all just grab the components because we all knew what had to go on every single plate, and we would just plate everything. And then as plates were ready, Danny would be handing them off to servers saying, this is table 43. This is 3rd course, table 25. And then everything would get cleared. We'd wipe everything down, and everyone would turn around back to their stations and just start working on the next flow.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And we were really organized. It was a really cool place. And then juxtapose that to my first job when I moved to America, which was at Tilia in Linden Hills. And like I remember walking in there and just like Paige, who is from Minnesota, grew up in St. Louis Park. She was just driving me around town with resumes and just like handing them to whoever. And I went into Tilia and Steven was there, which was not uncommon. And he was like, "Oh, cool. You're coming from Montreal. It's a great city. I love it there. You want to hang out for a bit?" I was like, "Sure." So that was kind of my interview. I like sat down with Steven. Like we like had a beer for like 45 minutes. And he was like, "Well, yeah, come on in on Thursday. We'll do a little stage shift for you." I was like, "Okay." Um Getting involved in Tilia, and I was like, this place is bonkers. This was like over a decade ago. So busy. I mean, by 4 o'clock, you have a line out the door. They never took reservations. So 4 o'clock, a line out the door. And you would turn the room like 4 or 5 times in a night.
Wow.
And Tilia was like, there was this one line cook, whenever you would ask him for a time, he'd be like, "How long do you need on table?" Whatever. He would just be like, "Just go. Just go." And that was like the motto at Tilia. It was like, just go. You always have 6 hot pans. You're always just cooking salmon. You're always cooking the shrimp and peas. That's like a staple over there. And it's like, that's a different flow.
Yeah.
That is like, as soon as 5 o'clock hits, like you are going to be right on the edge of complete breakdown until 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
When you're finally like, clear the last ticket, start cleaning up. Different. I think
different.
I definitely prefer the Ashkat model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it feels it just feels less chaotic, you know, and it's a little bit less like you're fighting for your life. Whereas Tilia is like you're fighting for your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. That's very fascinating. And I mean, both are interesting. I mean, they both seem to have similar, maybe Ashkatse was a little bit longer because you were doing a little bit more, but the working hours, I think, is also something people don't think about a lot when getting into an industry like this. It's like you're working from 2 p.m. maybe until 11 p.m. Like there are super long hours. And like, if you don't have friends that are also in the industry, like say goodbye to them.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like
that was a struggle when I started. Like I had all my friends from high school. I had, these guys I played in a band with, and one of them became an electrician, had a couple of kids, and he was like, "Dude, why can't we hang out anymore?" And it was like, because I work every single night, you know, and I'd be like, "Let's get a beer on a Monday." And he'd be like, "I can't do a beer on a Monday. Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just kind of, you end up, you do have to sort of make that decision and be okay with that. Like be okay with the fact that like, you're going to get a totally new set of friends. And who knows, some of those people, they might also get involved in the restaurant world. But yeah, it's that's a tough, I will say that is a tough one to grapple with, because you do have to end up saying goodbye to very long-term relationships just because your schedules don't work anymore.
Yeah. It can be very, very, very difficult. I'll never forget the first year. My birthday's in the middle of July, which for weddings was a big time of year. And I remember the first time my mom said no to a wedding on my birthday. And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's your birthday. I'm not going to do it." And I was like, "If we made it, did we make it? Is this it? Did we finally like?"
Right.
It just, I mean, it can be so all consuming.
Yeah.
What does that look like with your schedule now? Now that you're doing more private stuff, do you have a little bit more free time? Do you get to do a little bit more of that balancing, or is it still kind of like?
Well, it depends. So I do work part-time at my friend Jason's restaurant. This is Black Duck in Northeast.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Jason's a dear friend. We go way back. He actually catered mine and Paige's wedding when he was at Lynn 65, which is long gone now. And I bartend part-time at Wooden Ship in Linden Hills. Same thing. Good friends. I've known them forever. And that's just like it's a really good gig. So 3 to 4 sort of part-time shifts, but then I always have to pull those back when I have events. So for example, this week I'm working Wednesday, Friday, Saturday at Black Duck. Next week, I'm not working any days there because I have a wedding to prepare for. There's a lot of flexibility that I feel like has to happen. And I'm someone who likes a schedule. I like to have routines. And I think doing this type of like hospitality work, I think I've kind of like more or less made peace with I won't always have a good routine.
Mhm.
Paige has a good routine because she has a 9 to 5. Which sometimes she talks about how much she hates. Like she wishes she didn't have to go, into the office every morning and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But yeah, a routine like for us, like, having an event is really, it's always so interesting because it's like the start of the week is sort of like, is very like staring at a computer and like making prep lists, like compiling notes from phone calls, being
Mhm.
like, did they say that they wanted, we just had a client who's like, they really want pasta, but they don't want ravioli, but they like ravioli. So I'm like translating that, like, do I do a ravioli? So the beginning of the week is a lot of that. It's like fine tuning. It's dialing in a menu. It's being
Mhm.
like, okay, this is confirmed. The client has signed off on this. Now I got to go shopping.
Mhm.
I got to reach out to my local makers. Northland Vinegar, California Street Farm.
Mhm.
Especially in the summer, like texting Alyssa and being like, hey, do you have XYZ? And then also being like, this is for dinner, so
Mhm.
I only need one. I
Mhm.
don't need a case of squash. I just need
Right.
one. Um, and then yeah, early week starting long projects, whether that's like ferments or cures or getting like a poolish for a bread, something
Mhm.
like that. And then kind of midweek, I just sort of lock in. I usually end up having like 3 pretty solid prep days, usually 4 to 6 hours of prep.
Mhm.
Um, and and then as we get closer to the event, that's when it's like, okay, we got to go and wrangle all our plates. We have a huge supply of plates. So that's where we have to like wrangle all our plates. And Paige has to wrangle all the glassware. Like, okay, we're doing a beer, a wine, a cider, a cocktail, and a kombucha at this dinner. I need a different glass for all of those things. So
Mhm.
Paige is getting those glasses together and I'm putting all the plates together. And then I'm getting all the equipment ready. And then the day of, kind of, as I'm saying this, it sort of feels like the Ashkat Say experience where it's like, and then the day of, we try to make sure that everything is done so that we can have kind of a morning off,
Mhm.
take the morning nice and slow, have coffee, make breakfast, walk the dog, all that. Like try to have a very normal day.
Mhm.
And then usually by 2 p.m., we're loading up and we're driving to Waconia or Egan or whatever.
Mhm.
And then we get there, we set up and we talk to our client, who in some cases we haven't even met them face to face.
Mhm.
Um, we talk about the flow. Do you guys want us to talk during the dinner? Do you want us to not talk? Are you doing toasts? All that.
Mhm.
Um, and then we just go. Then it's like, okay, first course, let's go. And, course 1 and 2 get eaten really fast. So
Mhm.
make sure you're ready on course 2 and course 3. We're bussing and we're talking and all that. So it's interesting because yeah, like it's kind of like make peace with not having a routine.
Mhm.
But when we have an event, I mean, there's very much like
Mhm.
it's like a weekly routine, not so
Yeah.
much a daily routine.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
a standard operating procedure of like, okay, yep, we have an event on this day. If it's 5 days ahead of time, this is what we do. Day 5, day 4, day
Mhm.
3, day 2.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that changes based on the menu and based on how many people and
Yeah.
all that and the time of year even. Like,
Yeah.
okay, great, this person wants peaches and not peaches. Like, okay, cool. How are we gonna get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, very reminiscent of the way we did things too. Of like, okay, great. I mean, we had the benefit of having a restaurant, so it was also like, okay, we have, we can order a lot of something and be like, okay, great, we'll just put that on the menu then next week. Like any
Yeah.
leftovers that we have, then we can just do
Yeah.
for that, which is obviously really nice.
Yeah. And
Uh,
sometimes we are able to do that, usually around farm dinners.
mhm.
Because there's a lot of times with farm dinners where like, 2 days before, Alyssa will just be like, do you want this? And I'll be like, sure, we'll incorporate it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm plating, or our team is like plating, and I'm like, I want this on the plate, but I feel like this is too many elements. So maybe just put a little bit of
Mhm.
it on the plate. And then we end up with like this leftover. I'm like, oh, but we have an event next week. And maybe I can incorporate that into
Yeah.
their event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pickled radish or something.
Yeah. Talk to me about some moments of like satisfaction of like, I mean, you talked a little bit about turning the pizza joint around and those were
Yeah.
very like business driven KPIs and stuff like that. But any like, I don't know, food critic that you're like, oh, I got to watch them smile, or like anything that you were like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. And then it ended up being amazing. Any moments of like deep satisfaction where you were like, yes, this is it. I did good.
Yeah. There's probably 3 that really stick out. I think the first one is actually the first time we did the California Street Farm dinner.
It was great.
Thanks. There was a lot of planning that went into that.
I'm sure, yeah.
And it was brand new territory for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It was a culmination of kind of years of dreaming as well. I've tried to do farm to table dinners before. They're kind of sticky. They can be hard. Like a lot of times a farmer is like, I love this idea, but I don't have capacity to execute it. And that's fine. Farmers are very busy people, you know, and
yeah, it's about time to say goodbye to Alyssa. Like, right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Corey reached out to me first because we were working together at the Briar, and Corey was like, would you ever be interested in that? And I was like, dude, this has been a dream of mine for years, and I've never been able to really pull it off. And as a chef, I've been dedicated, you know, to farm to table food forever. Like I said, going back to Danny, I mean, when he would show up with a rental car filled to the brim with stuff from the farmer's market, and he would literally be like, this is our menu for this weekend. Like, that's really special. That's a really special thing to do. And Paige and I garden. We grow a lot of food and, you know, that we eat at home. So California Street Farm, getting that first dinner done, I mean, we finished and like the four of us were just delirious. But we were also like, I can't believe this worked.
Yeah.
Like Paige and I actually, what was funny was the next day we went to Milwaukee. We had a trip planned to go see an artist that we love, William Prince. He's a Canadian folk singer. And we were like, we're just going to finish this farm dinner and go to sleep for a few hours and then go to Milwaukee the next day because the show was on a Sunday. And we were just like beside ourselves. I mean, we had a really chill trip to Milwaukee. We go there all the time. And we usually fill our days when we're there. We're at all the restaurants, all the breweries. We're doing all the stuff. And we had this trip where we just kind of like relaxed. We went to Gropey's Market, which I was telling you about. We got sandwiches and I think like a couple beers, and we just like sat on the beach and just like really just absorbed it.
Yeah.
And like we couldn't stop talking about it. We were just like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, how did we do that? And then of course, when we came back and we had a proper debrief with Corey and Alyssa, all four of us immediately were like, we got to do this again. This has to be a series.
Yeah.
Like, and we all came to the same conclusion. We were like, we need to do more of these.
Yeah.
We need to do one that represents every season because it is a seasonal thing. And that's when we started talking about like, oh, we should do like a package and like, you know, people can buy like a season ticket sort of thing. And that we were surprised when that was so successful. Like, we were like, maybe some people will do it. And season tickets were flying. So, and as a teaser, we will be doing that again this year. We just sat down with them, I think on Thursday last week, and we started sort of planting those seeds and looking to the 2026.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. So another big highlight was just last year. So through Alyssa, we have made a lot of great connections. One org that we are connected to is Renewing the Countryside.
Okay.
They work to connect farmers to farms, chefs to farms.
Okay.
So they're a really good asset. And they asked me if we wanted to do a cooking demo at the state fair.
Nice.
I love the state fair.
Okay.
My favorite thing about the state fair is that I always do something new. Every year, I always find something new at the state fair, whether that's the U.S. Marines like pop band, which a friend introduced me to, and it was hilarious. I was like, I mean, incredible. But I was like, I don't even, like, they did the ceremonial raising of the flag and then they started singing Led Zeppelin. I was like, sure. I love the state fair. It's so much fun. And so that was my new thing. I was like, I was kind of like, this is so cool. Like, I get to do something new at the state fair, and it's something that reflects our business and our ethos.
Yeah.
So we did a cooking demonstration. We did 3 of them.
Wow.
30-minute demo. You basically get about 45 minutes downtime in between. When they started miking me up, I went into full panic mode because we did the mic check, and the demo was in the Eco Experience building.
Okay.
And I realized you could hear me throughout the entire building. I was mic'd into the whole building.
Wow.
and there's like 20 seats, and they were like, expect about 40 people to show up. And sure enough, 40 people showed up. And I did my demo. I really wanted to make halapji cabbage rolls because I have Ukrainian heritage. pretty deep Ukrainian lineage actually.
Very cool.
And I was like, well, cabbage rolls take like all day to make. So we came up with like we called it a cabbage roll stew. So all the elements that are in a cabbage roll, but in a quick, easy stew that you can just make, using like local grains and local vegetables and all that. And we did the thing, and they were like, that was great. And come back here in 45 minutes because you have to do another one. And then, and at the end of that, when we were like debriefing with Renewing the Countryside, they were like, you did really, really well. That was like one of the better, performances that we saw. And I was like, cool. It felt really good, like to connect with people, and like people were like asking questions, and they wanted to know like if they could substitute things. And one person was like, if I like my soup a little spicy, can I add a hot pepper? I was like, of course you can. Go for it. Like, I don't know what my grandma would think about that, but if you want to do it, do it. And then the third really big one was last year. Last year, I feel like there's a lot of ups in the last couple of years, and that was with Kirsty Beyond Beurre Blanc, local indie food writer who I respect so much.
She sat next to us at the first dinner.
Yeah.
So, and I don't drink at all.
Okay.
And that is becoming like a new, big thing in the Twin Cities. And I remember being so impressed that you guys had an NA pairing that wasn't just like, here's your Coke. And
here's
like, I was fully expecting like, just like, here you go. Yeah. So hearing her also talk about all the other restaurants and her experiences and stuff like that was super helpful. So that's really cool. Yeah.
And that's, that's something as an aside, and going back way to the first question is like something we've also used to describe ourselves as like hyper inclusive dining.
Yeah.
We don't do throwaway things. If you're gluten free, like we're going to make sure that you're going to have an incredible experience that will not harm you.
Yes.
If you don't drink, we are like adamant about ensuring that, sober people are not served alcohol. We treat it like an allergy, as it should be. And Paige gets more and more creative with her NA stuff.
Yeah.
Like every event that we do, it's amazing to watch like where her mind goes, where she's like, tell me about this plate, and I'll tell her about the dish, and she'll come up with a pairing that has nothing to do with the alcohol pairing, because she's like, I just think this is a more interesting pairing.
Yeah. And
we actually have gotten that feedback from people at California Street Farm and at other places where they've said, actually, we think the NA pairing is a little more interesting and it works better with the dish. And we're like, that's cool. Yeah. Awesome. And actually at a pop-up that I did years ago, we did a substitute because we did pork shoulder. Okay. And we treated it like a steak. And then the substitute was fried yuca, because of the texture. Yeah. The creamy, the kind of like slightly tough, crispy. And we had people say that they were eating their friend's yuca because they actually liked it a little bit more than the pork. Yeah. So on that long thing, the third sort of thing was Kirsty came out with a list of the 50 best restaurants in the state of Minnesota. And obviously you follow her. She does a lot of work. Yeah. And she had messaged me and was like, hey, just want to let you know, like, you are going to be on this list. And I was like, oh, great. And I thought, like, we'll probably be like somewhere in the middle, and also as a restaurant without a restaurant, I was like, how can we be on a best restaurant
list? How do you categorize us?
Yeah. And so I was like, and so when it came out, I was like pretty excited. Like I'm a paid subscriber on her Substack. So I was like swiping through and I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like I love so many of these places. And then also like making a list of like, next time I'm over there, I gotta go check this place out. Yeah. And I just didn't see us. And I was like, well, maybe we weren't actually on the list. Like maybe she was just like messaging me about something else. I don't know. And then finally, like it gets down to the top 10 and there we are. We're number 10. Yeah. Alongside like heavy hitters in the local industry. Yeah. I mean, people who are like, who I admire and respect enormously, who have physical restaurants. And I just like, I laugh about it now too. And I was like still laughing that morning. I was just like, how did we manage to be like number 10? We don't even have a restaurant. Like, and then, and she made a map too. I was like, where's she going to put us on the map? And she put us at California Street Farm, which I was like, yeah, that's fair. That was like, so that was a really big achievement. I was like, wow, like this indie food writer is like giving us just so much love and because we're doing what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the food pairing thing. I have had the privilege to go to a couple of very fine dining restaurants in my lifetime that you order just the tasting menu. It's just
Mhm.
like you order. And the first one I went to, I was 16 or 17 maybe. And my mom was like, okay, we're going to get one vegetarian and one non-vegetarian. And I was like, why would we get a vegetarian thing? We're not vegetarians. And she was like, because you need to taste what this can taste like.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, whatever. So she was like, okay, so we, as you do, share and whatever. And I was like, vegetables can taste like this.
Right.
And she was like, I'm kind of offended that you don't think my vegetables taste like that. But yes, vegetables can taste like this. So yeah, just always having that. And you never know what's going to hit. Like you just don't,
Yeah.
you don't always know. I think people assume that meat just kind of reigns supreme, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always the case.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been leaning into a lot more lately. That was an ethos that Danny carried with his food too. Is like meat is part of the plate; it's not the showcase.
Yeah.
Like unless you are doing like a celebration of shrimp, for example, then for sure there's going to be a lot of shrimp on that plate. But like that idea that when I put bacon or pork belly or something on a plate, like I try to be pretty limited in how much I use because I want to showcase, especially when we're at California Street, I want to showcase eggplant. I want to showcase spinach. I want to the vegetables, the star.
Yeah. Yeah. I often tell Alyssa that that's my vegetables for the year. I'm like, that's it. That's all I'm going to eat for the whole year. That's all I need.
Funny.
So talk to me about misnomers. Like when you meet someone new and you're like, oh, I'm a chef, I have a restaurant, I have a catering company, whatever it might be. What are some things that they automatically assume that you are like trying to correct them on? Especially I think since like The Bear has come out, I'm sure you get a lot of like, chef. And you're like, okay, we don't really do that, but sure. Or maybe you do. Like, what are some things that you are finding yourself like kind of correcting people about often?
There's a few. I think probably one of the biggest things is that based on the work that we do, everything has to be this like super high touch, crazy elevated experience with like foie gras and like all that. And I tend to talk people down from that a lot because they're like, especially for first time clients, where they're like, yeah, like I don't really know a lot about food and like what do you do sort of thing. And it's like, we work with you. So if you're looking for a super high end experience with caviar and foie gras, we'll do that for you, for sure. But usually once you get into it with people and you really start talking, they want something that is a balance between interesting and like familiar. One client, we did a hilarious dinner for her because the things that stood out as like her favorites were just so funny and like and it was all over the place. It was a chaotic menu, but it was great. And we did it. Like I did probably the funniest course I've ever done in my life was a pasta course that was inspired by McDonald's breakfast because she said one of my favorite things to eat is McDonald's breakfast. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that a dirty word? I said, no, it's one of my favorite things too.
Yeah.
And so we did a filled pasta with American cheese and we sat it on a little hash brown.
Nice.
And the dough for the pasta, I literally, chef secrets, I purchased English muffins. I soaked them in water and then I folded in flour to make a pasta dough.
Whoa.
So the pasta dough tasted like English muffins, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I was like, we can just have fun with this.
Yeah.
And that brings me to like the second thing is like, I think people often assume that it's very stuffy. Like, oh, you're a fine dining chef and you do private dinners in people's homes. Like that's not for me. It's too stuffy. And it's like, it's actually not. It can be really fun. It can be really easy. Some people are so easy to work with. They're like, just do your thing. Other people are really specific, but the do your thing is always fun because then we just get to be like, cool. Like you're going to get a seasonal menu that's like showcasing local produce and local products and all that. And we're just going to have fun with it. It's going to be easy. And then on the stuffy thing, I think another thing that people assume is like it's that our services are unattainably expensive. I have some folks who have said to me point blank, like, I can't afford you. And I always have to tell them, like, you actually can. because we work with the client. We work
Yeah.
within a budget. There's a local singer who we love, Sarah Morris.
Okay.
And we've followed her for years. She's followed us for years. She went out to Pachyderm Studio, famous recording studio in Cannon Falls, to record an album with her band. And she reached out and she was like, I just love what you guys do. And I just really want to thank my band with a very special meal. And I would love to be able to do like what you guys do, like a coursed meal out at the studio. And we said, sure. And she was like, I just don't know if I can afford you guys. And we're like, that's like, what's your budget? Name a budget, And I think she said like $400 or something like that for 6 people. And I was like, go, we can do it. We can do something really cool for you. And we made a 4-course, like family style, meal that was like local roasted vegetables and like cured salmon. And like, it was a really like elevated and cool dinner for them. And like, she thanks us all the time for that. She's like, that's like, it's just so remarkable that I gave you a number and you could create such a memorable experience for us. And that's something that I will always stress to people. Like you can probably make it work because we can make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. The differences between a home chef and a chef. Like I think about the people who are like, oh, I love to cook, but I could never cook in a restaurant or something like that. And like, I don't know about you, but my mom would come home from cooking all day and cook me dinner. And like, she was like, yeah, this is what I love to do. Like I love to do it. But I think that really leans more into the hospitality maybe than the cooking, because they are 2 very different experiences. Like cooking for your family, cooking for a large group of people that you don't know and you might never even get to see their faces. Like very different thing. Can you categorize any like differences between what makes a good home cook versus what makes a good cook in a professional kitchen or professional setting? I'm thinking about people who might be like, oh, I like to cook at home. What are some indicators that they might actually be a good fit for a professional kitchen? Or maybe that like, this is a great hobby for you and maybe it should stay a hobby for you.
I think the word that comes to mind right away is always adaptability.
Okay.
I think if you're the type of home cook who will never deviate on a recipe, like you actually add 2 tablespoons of salt to a pork chop because that's what the recipe says to add.
Yeah.
You might have a hard time in a professional kitchen.
Yeah.
Professional kitchens are great and they are perfectly imperfect every time. Even at Black Duck, like Jason's got a great system. It's hearth cooking. I work on the hearth station. I jokingly say like over 2 decades of experience in this industry, and I'm still constantly learning new things. And in that case, Jason didn't even ask me. He just said, I'm going to put you on the hearth. I was like, okay, I barely know how to do wood fire cooking, but I guess I'm going to learn. So I think adaptability is kind of the biggest thing. If you're, and also like creativity and like wanting to explore. If you're the type of home cook who has a ton of cookbooks and you like challenging yourself with recipes, I think that's a good indicator that you could probably be pretty good in a professional kitchen.
Okay.
Other indicators for me are like cleanliness and organization. If you're someone who is very much like I'm cleaning as I go all the time when I'm cooking, you do great in a professional kitchen. If you're someone who's like, I'm just going to let the sink fill up with dishes and then clean them all at the end, like after I've eaten, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
And then, organization. Our kitchen at home is, some elements of it are very organized and some elements of it are not. We have a constant gripe with our baking department. It's just chaos. But like directly to the left of the stove is pepper, salt, multiple vinegars, olive oil, cooking oil, and a handful of other things. Tools. We have 2 separate bays of tools on both sides of the oven. One is wooden tools, one is silicone tools. We have a drawer right next to the oven that's got tongs and spatulas and like important things like that. So we set up our kitchen at home to cook in because Paige and I, when we met, that was one thing that we really hit it off on. We both really like to cook. And that's a funny thing. I know cooks who hate cooking at home, who don't. I had a cook friend who refused to cook at home because he said that if you cook at home, you're going to be a worse cook in the kitchen because you're depleting your creativity or something. It was like the weirdest mental gymnastics I ever heard. I was like, I was like, that is so weird. Which like, I don't know if he still thinks that way, but it's like, at the time I was like, I don't know, man. Like I like making food at home.
Yeah.
So Paige and I connected on that right away. The first time that we were like spending time together, we made food together. We made a pizza together. And so we cook together at home a lot. And the way that we cook at home can be different though. I tend to just go off book a lot. I am someone who Paige likes to have a recipe, but she will deviate. But I tend to be someone who's like, like I'm going to do it like this because I want to do it that way, you know? But then it's funny because we have a lot of very different cookbooks. One really interesting one that I got years ago is the Night Market cookbook. And we open it every once in a while, but a lot of those recipes are very not complicated, but they're just kind of outside of my comfort zone. So if I feel like challenging myself, I can be like, okay, I'm going to cook something out of here and like really go all in on it.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's like when we make a meal plan, I'm like, let's pick up some chicken thighs and let's pick up some carrots and let's just we're just going to cook them because we know how to cook them. So yeah, that kind of answers the question, kind of not, but yeah, it is funny because being a home cook, like sometimes I get burned out on it, you know, like if I have a really particularly grueling event that I'm working on, like I don't want to cook at home. I just don't. I'm just like, I'll get home and I'm like, I'm not in the mood for it. And actually we just started, as we keep doing what we're doing and kind of growing and learning in these processes. Paige made a really good point the other day when we were prepping we had events like 4 weeks in a row.
Okay.
And we were just eating like just trash. Like we were not being good about what we ate. We were like going out to eat a lot and like just kind of like, what's for dinner? I don't know, pasta, like just like whatever. And Paige made a really good point. She was like, you know, when we have these long lines of events, when we're just like back to back on them, we should do some meal prep for ourselves. Like we should just prep a bunch of like easy stuff that we can just heat up for dinner. And I was like, that's a great idea. Why did it take us like 8 years to come to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super funny. Yeah. I think home cooks and like, they do get a bad rap. I mean, I grew up in for sure an ingredient household. We were not a household that had anything that was like ready to eat. You could cook anything you wanted to cook. We had a ton of ingredients, a ton of weird food, all that kind of stuff. But there was no Pop-Tarts. There was no Hot Pocket. There was none of that in my household, except my mom loves pastaroni. That was her like, I'm done from this giant wedding or done from this super stressful event. Somebody get me that goddamn pastaroni box. It was like, okay, sure. You got it. So it is, I think, you know, kind of in that misnomer vein of like, oh, you must only eat fancy food. It's like,
yeah,
love McDonald's breakfast. Like it's good food is good food, baby. Like I don't really care where it comes from.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's another like misnomer. Like when people are like, oh, you're a chef, like you must eat so well. And it's like sometimes it's just comfort food all
Sometimes
day, every day.
Buttered noodles are just when it hits. Buttered noodles hit.
And we have things that we love to make. Like we love making pizza. It's super fun. It's so versatile. You can put anything on it. Doesn't matter. Like pizza's a pizza. And like that's something that we're just like, we love it. And when people, it's like the assumption. We love seafood. And we always say we should eat more seafood, but it's like it's expensive first and foremost. And it's also like it's a time crunch. Like chicken can sit in the fridge for a couple of days. Shrimp, you're gonna want to eat that pretty much right away. So it's like when we do say we're gonna get some seafood, it's like, okay, we are gonna purchase it and we are cooking it tonight. This has to happen tonight, you know? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the benefit of having some of those higher end clients is like, I remember we had a couple that would always ship in. We found some distributor in Hawaii that like would next day air. Like they would just like be like, caught it, next day it's to you.
Yeah.
And so we had a couple clients that were like, we want that. And we were like, great, we can just add in, like you're going to pay for the shipping and then we can just add in what we want on top of it. It's like, okay, we'll only bill you for what you got, but we can kind of piggyback off of your order, which was always really fun.
We just had lamb because of that.
Yeah.
Because we had an event and I needed 3.5 racks of lamb to make enough lamb for this event.
Well,
like, well, we have a half rack of lamb here.
Yeah.
And we made a whole event out of it. Like we made like a night, like really nice sides. I think I even took pictures. Like I was like, this is like, we never eat stuff like that.
Right.
And we were like, we have an opportunity to eat something really, really nice.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, rewinding back to like your younger self, let's go like in that decision of like, do I continue at this pizza place or do I go in the print shop or whatever? Like, what kind of advice would you have given your younger self?
I think the best advice is like, don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
I did a lot of like soul searching in my late teens. I think as a lot of people do, you kind of go through this like, okay, like I'm going to be a grown up now. And you're also fed that messaging, you know, like every valedictorian speech includes something about you're entering the real world. And it's like, well, are you, you know, like we're in the real world, right? Like that was my grapple when I was younger. I was like, we're in the real world. Like, which I always found really funny. And so, yeah, a lot of like that sort of soul searching. And I had an aha moment, I think when I was probably 18 or 19, because I operated for many years from a place of why. Like, why would I do that? Why would I do this? Why would I go over there? And I sort of had this like mental shift to a why not, which that sounds kind of TED talky, but like it's truly like I was like having coffee at one of my favorite coffee shops, and I was like pondering all these whys, like, well, why would I do that? Why? And then it just like clicked, and I was like, well, why not? Like, why not do XYZ thing that I think could be interesting? Like, you know, I got into skateboarding, like, because I was always like, why would I get into skateboarding? And then I was like, well, why not get into it? Seems fun, looks interesting. And like, and I just bought a skateboard and got into skateboarding, like, as an example, which now as I actually got back into it last year and I injured myself. So,
that'll happen.
But yeah, I think the best advice is just like, just try different things. Try different things, meet different people, meet people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, for sure. I think is really important. Just kind of broaden your net. That's sort of something that I work at now. And I plan to continue working through that my whole life is like, how can you just keep like opening up that net? And you never really know like what's going to kind of come your way. So where I grew up was in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm Canadian. And like Winnipeg didn't have a great restaurant scene when I was getting into the restaurant scene. There were some great places, but nothing like a Toronto or a Montreal or Vancouver. And so when the opportunity presented itself to move to Montreal, I was dating someone and she got accepted to a program there. I was like, yeah. And I fought the idea for a long time because I had just helped my friend open a restaurant. It's awesome British pub in Winnipeg. One of my best chefs, Norm, he was an incredible chef. He taught me so much. And we were like at year 1 and I was just like, I feel bad. I don't want to abandon this project. Like I was in here scrubbing floors with you before we were open. Like I helped you build this kitchen. We had multiple meetings talking about flow and how to put this all together. And like, should the deep fryer go over there or over there? You know, and it felt really bad because I was like, I don't want to abandon you, chef. Like this feels terrible. And he was like, dude, you have the opportunity to live in one of the greatest food cities in the world. Take it and run, my guy. Like go. And I did. And, you know, it's like sometimes you need that nudge, right? But it's also like once I moved there, I just got scooped scooped up by this one restaurant, the pub, the brew pub that was just crazy. And those are some of my best friends to this day. I mean, those are people who, when the federal occupation got really, really intense a few weeks ago, or I guess, a month ago, 2 months ago, time isn't real. Those were friends who were reaching out, texting me, saying things like, I'm so scared for what's happening. I know you like in Minneapolis right now. And Minneapolis wasn't on their radar before I moved here.
100%. Yeah. I had a similar experience where friends that I hadn't talked to in 10 years were like, dude, I hope you're okay. And I was like, I didn't even know that you knew that I lived here.
Yeah. And it's like, and these are people who I text almost daily. Like, and that's a really interesting thing. Like going back to talking about like the friends that you lose when you get into the hospitality world, the friends that you gain, I mean, those are like the most ride or die people in your life.
Truly.
Like to have someone who I haven't seen in 4 years message me and be like, I'm looking out for you. Can I do anything? Someone I haven't seen in, almost 10 years messaged me and he said, listen, our apartment is small. We have 2 kiddos, but if things really start going south, like you can come here, you can be safe. I am opening my home in Montreal up to you. And I was like, thanks. Like that's amazing. So, just going on a tirade there.
Those friends, because of the nature of the work and the chaos, and I'm going to call it like the shared suffering. And not that it is suffering, but I would say that shared chaos and truly in the trenches with those people, like it is a little bit culty for sure. And like not necessarily in a bad way, but it's like, hey, you're going to give up a lot of the friends you might currently have, but like these people will die for you. And sometimes for no good reason. Like sometimes somebody looked at you sideways and you're like, okay, calm down. Like it's okay.
It's kind of amazing. It's an amazing community.
And I mean, just in hearing you talk about it, like the Minneapolis and any city, the restaurant community, I think people often don't realize how interconnected everybody is. Like I think, the idea of restaurant groups. And I think a lot of people don't even necessarily know that. They're like, oh, that's owned by the same restaurant group. You're like, And like, they all have the same Cisco reps. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows like, oh, this one's closed and someone else is going to move in here and blah, blah, blah. Like
kind of close to our neighborhood, where Chicago Taste Authority used to be. And there's an amazing store next to them called Carousel and Folk. But this restaurant, Chicago Taste Authority, they closed. It was kind of restaurant space. We toyed with the idea. We're like, that could be a cool location. Like let's think about it. But it got scooped up really quickly. And they're like, it's going to be like Bob's Fish Shack or something like that. Can't remember what the name is. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, it's an interesting concept for a restaurant. And then I actually read an article and I was like, oh, it's part of Centro. It's part of the Centro group. I'm like, they're branching out into something a little bit different. And I think that's really cool. It's like, I worked at Popol Vuh when they were still around. And so it's like, okay, cool. They're just kind of branching out. Like they've already got like 3 Centro locations and then they got like Bina's and now they're going to like do a kind of Northwoodsy thing. So that's kind of cool. Like, Yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting like how, owners and chefs work together and they're not always the same person, but they kind of have a similar balance of power. Like I think that's a very unique relationship that I haven't seen replicated in any other industry where it's like, you might be the owner, but I'm the chef.
Right.
And it's like, who's really in charge here? It's like, it's kind of a president CEO situation. It feels like, where it's like, nope, we're same. We just have very different skill sets, which it actually sounds like you have both of those skill sets. I think that would be, I mean, it's a very difficult thing to do, is to be able to think in both of those brains of like the creativity and also the spreadsheets of like, okay, and the numbers and the food orders and like, all right, this is going to take 3 days to ship here, so I better get it on Wednesday. And like,
I love spreadsheets. I'm obsessed.
Me too. I love them. Love them.
Yeah.
Something that I didn't think that I would love, that I was like, oh, this is like lame and dumb. And then I was like, oh, I can forecast. This is the best. Or like I can get costs down to per plate, per dish, per person, all of that stuff. So it allows you, I mean, I think spreadsheets similar to cooking. Oh, I'm going to make a weird parallel here, but like when you know the rules, you can break the rules. And when you know your own data and you know all of that kind of stuff, then you can really start to see what kind of levers you can pull, some things that you
Yeah.
didn't know that you're like, oh, this price of meat is double if I get it from this person, or if I get it from this person. Great.
Yeah.
This allows me to pull on that and make some different choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm
You're welcome.
hungry talking to you. But this has been great. I think you have a very interesting career, and just like the differences between the regular world and food, very different. But then within food, kind of like that microcosm of like, there's a couple different things you could do depending on how you want your life to look. So
Totally.
fascinating.
Yeah.
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 Well, I guess hopefully we'll get a link from Melissa when the season tickets go on sale. I feel lucky to be involved in that and get to hear about it from her. She's quite the connected individual.
Oh yeah.
It just
Yeah.
anybody I know, I'm like, do you know Alyssa? They're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know Alyssa. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working with some folks right now who are trying to start a farmer's market.
Yeah.
And right away I was just like, let me get you in touch with Alyssa.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because she'll connect you to everyone else, and then
Totally.
and you'll get this thing off the ground.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I so appreciate it. And hopefully we've got some people that learned a little bit about what this is like. And
Yeah.
if they're interested in food, then hopefully they can jump into it. I think another thing is you seem to have like pretty supportive parents, which I do think is probably a rare
Yeah.
thing to get into food and be like, hey, I want to spend. I mean, even my mom was like, you're not allowed. Like, I don't want you to spend
Yeah.
that much of your life on your feet. My mom has really bad feet problems.
Yeah.
So heads up, like
Yeah.
take care of your feet.
Yep.
Because of that. So it was like,
Yeah.
you're going to destroy your body. You're going to have no family. Like it would be very difficult to have children and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So I do think that as a parent,
Yeah.
it can be kind of hard to be like, I don't know that I want
Mhm.
you to do that. So
Yeah. And supportive in-laws too. Paige's
Yeah.
parents are like, they're like our biggest cheerleaders.
That's awesome.
They love it. They're like so pumped about all our events. I think they've come to one or two of the dinners, but
Yeah.
yeah, like they're always like, oh, tell us about your weekend. Like, what was your event this weekend? And I
Yeah.
tell them, they're like, oh, it's so cool. And like, yeah.
yeah,
So it's good. It's good to have like a nice support system.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well,
Cool.
thank you so much.
Thank you.